Hello and welcome to this short introductory overview video of Kaboodle What's Up, which is an app part that you can download from the App Store, and it provides a tile-based user interface for any kind of list type in SharePoint. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the app to the site, to this test and evaluation site that we've got up and running in Office 365. Now I'm assuming here that somebody, an administrator, has already downloaded the app from the App Store. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and click on that to actually install it onto this evaluation site. Now from the dialog here you can see that this application is actually back-ended into Azure, so it's got great uptime and great support. And the permissions that the app part is requesting is to be able to edit and delete list items. We'll go ahead and trust that. And it'll take a few moments whilst the app actually gets installed onto the site. Okay, so now that that's done, we'll click on the tile icon, and this will take you to the home page for the app. And this allows you to access some other resources like the Kaboodle homepage, online documentation, which is available either in OneNote online or you can download a PDF version, some product support videos, and you can also connect to Kaboodle Software forum, leave us some feedback, suggestions for good ideas, any issues, and any feedback that you want. And then, of course, we'll get back to you. So I'm going back to the product and evaluation site, and it's an empty page here, so we'll shift this into edit mode, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an instance of the new app part to this page. So I'll switch to the insert tab and pick up the app part and add it to the page. Now what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to connect this app part to a task list that I've got over here. If I just switch to another tab, I've got a task here list. This is a standard SharePoint task list, but it's been extended a little bit. It's got some of the standard fields like percentage complete, a description field which is configured to show some rich text, a due date. It's got a priority, but it's also got this field here. This is actually a calculated field, and it actually returns a URL to an image, and you'll see why we've set that up a little bit later. So back to the test page. I'm going to edit the web part properties, and what I'll do is I'll actually give the app part a little bit more meaningful title. I'll call it something like Project Tasks. And you can see down here we've got like 7 custom sections, so this might lead you to the conclusion, the correct conclusion, that this is a highly configurable application. But all we need to do to get things started is expand list settings, and what I'm just going to do is to provide the list, the name of the list that I wish to connect this app part to. Click on OK. I'll go ahead and save that. And what you can see is that a matrix of tiles has now been set up, and if you think this looks a bit like promoted links list, then well, of course it does. That's the whole point and the whole intention is to bring that type of user interface, but make it available to all list types, not just promoted links. Now the added advantage that What's Up has is that unlike promoted links where you can only show tiles in one row, you can actually show all the tiles in a matrix of your choosing, and you can change the tile sizes as well. So basically each of these tiles represents an interface onto one of the list items. Now if we look back at the task list, there's over 100 task items in this list. Far too many that we would want to show on any one page. So there's inbuilt paging capabilities for this, so I can just jump to page 3, or I can scroll back through the list items. And this is why the app part performs so well, because it only loads the data that it actually needs. You can also change the views. So let me say I want to pick the completed view. This is just going to show the tasks that are completed. And in this case, there's 10, 12 of the tasks are actually been marked as completed. And that's all. So we don't actually need any paging controls. Notice that the tiles are colored blue. That's no accident. That is because the default tile color follows the color style of the theme. So if this was orange, the tile's default color would be orange, etc. Okay, let's go and edit the app part again and add a few more properties, because it's looking a bit bland at the moment. We want to add some color. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to link up this app part to various standard fields that SharePoint columns that belong in the list. So in the field mapping section, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to nominate some fields. Now this is going to be an example of a time-driven configuration. So if I actually go and look in the time-driven settings, basically what I'm doing here is I'm specifying that I want the task to be colored green when the task is marked as complete, and I want the tile to be colored red when the task is overdue. When the task is at risk, and I'm defining risk as being due within this number of minutes, and that actually equates to a full week, so that's how many minutes there are in 7 days. If the task is due within this week, then I want you to color it dark orange. And if it's not yet due or not due this week, then just leave it as the default blue color. Now for that to be able to work, I have to set some field mappings. So I'm going to make this time sensitive. So I'm driving this whole color scheme from, of course you can set up whatever colors you want, but those are just the default ones. I'm driving this all from this date here. I'm going to add in the description field, and that's actually going to be the peak text when users hover their mouse over the tiles. Okay, so this is the due date. Due date field. I'll leave graphics field as it did blank for the moment. I'll come back to that later. That should be enough. So basically I've identified the field that's the percentage complete, the title, the description that is color driven, and the field that's used to drive to specify when the tasks are actually due. So go ahead and save those settings now, and a bit of magic now starts to happen, because all of the tiles now start to begin to be color coded. So let me just save that setting at the moment. And because I've completed those field mappings, the top right hand corner of the task will actually, or those tasks that haven't yet been complete or have had a due date assigned to them, and you can see that it reports that due date in a friendly date format. So all the tasks that are coloured red are overdue. Some of them are 5 days, 7 days, 15 days overdue. Some tasks are actually due. This one here, this yellow one is task Y. That's due tomorrow, well, at midnight tonight actually. This one's due on Saturday at 11:45. If I hover over the tile, you can see that the percentage complete field actually allows you to show a slider. So one of the things that we wanted to do with this app part was to make it interactive. So users can actually set values. All they have to do is to drag this to an appropriate value. So this making bacon is now at 50%, and if I go back to the task here, the list behind, and refresh it, you actually see that making bacon has now been set to 50%. So everything's integrated. Of course, you don't have to make this read and write. You can just have it as read-only interface if you want, and of course it's security trimmed, so only users who have access to change the specific list items will be able to see the slider and set a value. Now users might just want to mark stuff as complete, and we make that easy as well. So let's say that we want to mark this task as complete. All you have to do is to right click on the tile. You see the check mark appears, the spinner loads, it turns green, and another task, if we go behind, here it is here, and we'll just refresh that screen. And you'll see that another task has now been marked as complete. So everything is cool. If I want to reset that, if I made a mistake, I can set that back to whichever value that I want, and immediately the colors been restored. Okay, good. So you might have noticed that there's an icon on the task on each of the tiles, and that's a standard icon that's associated with a SharePoint task list. Now each of the SharePoint lists, or the base lists, custom list, issue list, and the like, they all have their own icon, and we pull that directly from the SharePoint environment. But there might be occasion when you actually want to change the icon that's associated with the tile. And in this case, what we've done is we've implemented some business logic, and basically we're going to drive the icon that's actually shown by that calculated column that we defined on the list. So if you just refresh yourself, anything that's we've got a calculated column here, so anything that's high priority in this calculated column returns a high priority graphic, or a low priority sends a low priority graphic. Anything that's not high or low, that's normal, and we just leave that as the blank default value, because we'll use the standard default graphic for the tile in that particular case. So I'm going to edit a few properties, and the first one I'm going to do is to put in that field mapping. So priority icon was the name of the column that we're using to drive this. And whilst I'm here, I'll do a couple of other things. What I'm going to do is in the user interaction setting, I'm going to add some columns that I want to actually display in a custom callout, and I'll show you the custom callout in just a minute. But I'm going to start by putting in the start date field, and we'll have the due date, and we'll have the description, and we'll have the created date, and we'll have the created by. So what I'm actually doing, if I could spell there, so what I'm actually doing here is listing some columns that I want to actually display in a call out. Now this link mode, this can be used to define what actually happens when a user clicks on the tile. So I'm going to leave this as edit, because what I want to have happen is that when a user clicks on the tile, I want them to be taken to the edit form for that particular list item. Now this field here is quite important because of the way that the Cloud App Model works and app parts work. An app part doesn't actually know which page which it's hosted, and that's for security reasons. But what we want to do is we want to be able to return the user back from where they came after they've actually edited a form. So we have to actually paste in where we actually want the page to the user to be returned to. Okay, so we set up some column values here. One thing else I'm going to do, I'm going to change, can you see that the default layout for this is 5 columns by 3 rows? I'm actually going to change that. I'm going to make this 4 columns by, okay, I guess we can leave it as 3 rows again, but I'm going to change the spacing between the tiles. I'll increase that to 5 pixels, and I'm actually going to increase the tile size to 200 pixels by 200 pixels as well. Okay, that's probably enough settings to be going on with, so I'll just click OK. We'll save all of those settings. And we'll save that information there. Okay, so what you see now is that the tiles are obviously larger, and what you might also notice is that the text size of the tiles has also stayed in proportion. So the font size is actually driven by whatever size you specify on the tile. If I hover over it now, you see this information icon here. If I hover over this, this is the call out I was talking about before, and you can access the edit or open dialog for the actual list item behind, and you can display whatever information you happen to want to show in the call out. Now, call outs work kind of slightly different to standard SharePoint call outs. Basically, they're sticky. So if I hover over one, it doesn't actually disappear when I move my mouse off. It only disappears if I actually select a different call out or if I actually close this down. Okay, the other thing that we did was that we actually sorted out the click through on tiles. So when I click on a tile now, we're actually taken to the edit form for this particular item, and I'm going to change this from high priority to normal and click on save. And you can see that because we provided the return page URL, we're actually getting taken back to the place where we started from, so the tiles will be loaded. Okay, so one thing that doesn't appear to be working quite right at the moment is that the icon isn't actually being picked up for high or low priority tasks. So let me see what's going on there. Let me switch back into edit mode. And the app part actually has an inbuilt sort of reporting and logging mechanism. So we'll switch that on and see if this actually gives us any additional information. So this is done in the verbosity section down here, and I'm going to make this verbose, and I'm going to have this thing show just warning and error messages. If I uncheck this box, it would show all of the logging information, which we probably don't need. I just want to have a look and see what the warnings and error messages are, if there are any. Okay, oh look, it seems as though I've misspelt the word priority. So it's basically telling me that this field can't be found because it's not on the list, and that's because I misspelt it. So I'm going to edit that at part property, go back into the field mapping section, and let's see if I can get my my spelling right now. Priority. Is that right? Sounds good enough to me. And let's just see if that works now. Okay, so we'll just save that. Because there's no error or warning messages to show, then there's no additional information that's been shown. Now, what we can see is that low priority tasks have actually been assigned a different icon according to the calculated column, and high priorities have been assigned an up item. Okay, I think that's enough for an introductory overview. There's a huge range of settings and options available to you. It's a really cool app part. We really enjoyed building it, so we hope that you decide to buy it, and it has some real business value for your users. Thank you very much for listening.